and the honor for all that he's done in my life. At a young age, I married, and when my marriage was dissolved, I was devastated. And the devil saw the opportunity to bring a woman to introduce me to marijuana and to drugs. And some of the drugs were pretty strong, and the marijuana had PCP in it, which at the time I had no idea what that was. I fried my brain is what ended up happening. I fried my brain 99%, and the doctors gave no hope. They said, my dad went to go visit me at the hospital, like my brother mentioned, just totally distorted. And I remember that when I was in the hospital, my dad would walk into the building with the Bible. He had asked the doctors for permission to just read the Bible over my body, and the doctors had told my dad, you know, this is the 20th century, I'm so sorry. There's no hope for your daughter. She's not going to come out of this. There's nothing we can possibly do for her. There's no medical technology. She has fried her brain. Her brain cells are dead. He's like, I don't know if you understand that, but there's nothing we can do for her. So we can't give them back to her. We can't operate. There's nothing that can be done. And my dad said, well, I know a living God, and all things are possible through him. All I want to do is just read the Bible over my daughter's body. And at the time, I was going into a coma, and the doctors told him she's going to go into a deeper coma, and she's eventually going to stop breathing. But because the Lord put favor in the doctors towards my dad, he told my dad, why don't you just forget about this daughter? You have other children. Focus on them, but just kind of pretend that you never had this daughter, because there's no hope for her. But my dad said, you know, please, I know that there's a true and living God. This same living God is the God that heals her mother of tuberculosis. And it was true. My mother at the age of 22 had been delivered of tuberculosis. So the doctor said, okay, as long as there's no problems, you don't cause any problems, you can pray over your daughter. And so my dad was given permission to come. And now my demons knew. Every single time my dad would walk into the building, my whole body would just react, and the demons would cause my head to start hitting the table and causing blood to run down my face, just any type of distraction to get my dad away from me. Or they would just be standing, and all of a sudden I'd flip backwards and smash my face right on the floor. So it was very difficult for my dad to even just try to get near me so he could read the Bible. Now I recall waking up and finding my arms, my wrist was strapped to a bed. And I looked down, and I was wearing yellow pajamas. And I looked further down, and I saw my other ankle strapped all the way across and strapped to the bed. And my body had been thrashing. I had been thrashing and foaming at the mouth. My body had been thrashing, and I had been foaming at the mouth, and I was cursing and saying ugly things. And I heard myself saying those things. I was so shocked that I was talking like that to my dad. And then I looked down, and I saw my dad's wife. My dad had remarried, and I saw my stepmother. She was praying for me, and she had her hands up in the air, and she was, they're Pentecostal, so they don't believe in demons. Yeah, at this point they didn't, at the time anyway. But she's raising her hands and just praying out to God and crying out for me. And I looked over at my dad, and he's got the Bible, and he's just reading and reading and crying and reading. And my body was just thrashing all over and foaming at the mouth. And like I said, I was cursing at them. And I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm cursing at them. And then I'd think, wait, why am I in these yellow pajamas? And why am I strapped? And where are my children? I have Becky, Monica, and Tino. Where are they? And then all of a sudden, I'd zap out again, and I was gone. The next time I wake up, and I was in a wheelchair. And I'd wake up, and I'd go, oh, my God, my hair must be a mess. And I remember trying to comb it, and I looked at my nails, and I was like, oh, I've got to wash my hands. I mean, just little pieces. Now, I believe now that I'm out of all of that, I understand that the Lord wanted me to never forget, to know where I had been, the seriousness of this, that I had 99% of my brain was fried, and there was no hope for me, and this is the state I was in. Now, it was just through a short period of time. It was only 3 weeks, which is totally a miracle. Because by the reading of the Word of God just being poured on me, at the end of 3 weeks, I was able to walk in front of a judge and talk to him, and they gave me the release. I could be released from this mental institution that I was in, and I was in custody of my dad. And my dad, being my spiritual covering, he was instructed to medicate me. But the medication that I was under was just very, it would keep me very sedated, where I was just very heavy and always sleeping. And my dad decided that he was going to step out in faith and take me off that medication. He said he didn't believe that we're serving a God that would just bring me halfway and just leave me in this state. So they told my dad, "Oh, you can't do this. Sir, we'll tell you right now, this child of yours, she's running out in the street and she's stripping clothes, yelling out that the clothes is on fire and she's burning up and she's stripping her clothes and running. She will run into the street and a car will kill her and we're going to have to come and pick you up and put you in jail." And my dad said, I'm going to have to. He said, because I'm trusting in God. I'm going to trust that God is going to deliver her. The God I serve doesn't do things halfways. And my daughter's not set free like this, being bound to all these medications. So my dad did. He stepped out in faith. He got me off the drugs. And he took me to an old-fashioned Pentecostal church. Now, the Pentecostal church, they didn't know how to deal with demonized people. And that's exactly what I was. My dad brought me into the church and sat me down at the front pew. And the minute I don't know if they started singing or reading the Word of God, my demons just immediately went underneath the chair and started slithering out of the church. So they had to run and grab me and bring me back. And the minister asked, "Please don't bring her back. We don't know what to do. We're sorry for your daughter, but please don't bring her to this church," because they didn't know about the demons and they couldn't pray for me. And I was actually being a disgrace to, Jesus is the answer. But then there I am so demonized and they couldn't help me. So my dad, like I said, at the time he didn't believe in demons, but he knew me and he knew what was happening, that it was not me. So he sat me in a chair and strapped me to a chair and put the Word of God, the scriptures on day and night. And my demons screamed and howled. And I manifested. I was just out of my mind trying to get out of that chair. And little by little, the Lord started to give me deliverance. Just by the pure Word of God just going into me, just little by little, I started getting set free. And, the Lord brought me to a point where I was able to fly home. Now, my brother Noe left his job and went out to visit me, threatening that they were going to fire him because he didn't have permission to leave his job. But he said, "This is my sister, and she's in desperate need." And he had gone out there to visit me. He had brought pictures because they told him, "Your sister's lost the will of living. She doesn't want to live. She's lost the will to live." So he would bring pictures. He said, "Look at the kids. Look at our kids. Look at your kids." And my mind, my eyes, the devil wouldn't allow me to focus. It was just all over the place, and I couldn't hold my head up to look at the pictures. And when my dad finally, he knew that I was okay, that I was getting better because I had been receiving deliverance. I was ready to go back to Indiana. I went to go live with my brother Noe for a while, and then I went back. I was starting to get better and better because a little at a time I started to get, all those demons had been coming out of me. I didn't know that they were demons. At the time, I didn't know. And I got an apartment, and I was responsible for my 3 children again. And the devil sent a woman to my door to knock on the door, walk right in, didn't say a word. It was the devil himself. Spread a table right before me of drugs. I was bound. I couldn't say no. You would think, after everything I just come out of, and there they were, all the marijuana, all the pills, all the drugs, everything, anything. And I looked at her, and she said not a word. She just started rolling and lighting and giving. And I started to take them, and I got so high. Right when I felt that I was just at the very highest point, She grabbed the four corners of that tablecloth, not a word spoken, grabbed everything, rolled it up, and turned right around and walked right out the door. And when she walked out the door, I knew I was in trouble. I was like, I was so high. I was like, I gotta see my kids. Just want to see my kids. I'm so afraid. I was afraid of myself. And I went in, and we had like French doors. And when I went in to push through the French doors to see my kids, I heard the voice say, go ahead, take a peek, look at them. It's all it's gonna take. Just one look, and it'll be so easy to kill them. I was so scared. I shut that door and I jumped back, and I went into my bedroom, and I fell down on my knees, and I put my hands over my face, and I curled up, into a tiny little ball, and I started to cry and calling out on God, Lord, God, help me, because I can't help myself. I couldn't say no to the drugs. And while I was crying, I felt the pressure underneath my elbows pulling up. And I was like, what? And my forehead. There was pressure on my forehead to get up, to sit up. And I was like, what, Lord? I knew it was the Lord, but I'm like, what? I don't know what you want. And then he started to pull my arms up. And I was like, what? And then I remembered I was raised Pentecostal, so I knew, surrender. So I was like, I know. So the minute I turned my hands to surrender, I heard with my ears big, thick chains fall from my hands, go clunk, 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 and fall on the floor. And immediately, whoosh, I was sober. I was like, my God in heaven, God is alive. He lives. And not once after that have I've never turned back to drugs. I've always been strong enough to say, no way. As a matter of fact, I cut all associations, got away from those people, and to God be the glory and the honor. He continued delivering me until I got to Hegwish. I didn't know about Hegwish, but my brother Noe introduced me. He told me to come to church and to get in there, because all I knew to do was, like he said, I have memories of my dad. My dad would get down on his knees and pray, open the Bible and pray, and that's what I knew to do. So I would get down on my knees every morning, and I'd open the Bible and I'd pray, and I'd talk to God, and I'd read the Word. I'd be getting sleepy because it would be 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd stand up, I'd wet my face, and I'd carry the Word of God with me, and I'd read, walking around, and then all of a sudden I'd have to put the Bible down, run to the bathroom, will throw up. I was heaving demons until I got to Hegwish. And then at Hegwish, I got another massive amount of deliverance again and again, repeatedly. And I remained there at Hegwish for 30-some years. And it has been a walk little by little. But to God be the glory and the honor and the praise for, a friend of mine, she's a young college student, and she mentioned to me, she said, Rebecca, it's not possible. It's not possible that you would regrow brain cells. She said, so it had to be the Lord that would just give them to you. She said, nowhere in medical science is it possible that they could have done anything for us. I was like, well, that's what the doctor said. I mean, what do I know? I'm just hearing what they said to my dad. But she said, no, I know that there's nothing. She said, it was God. Now, because of my testimony, actually, she was a young lady that I worked with. I was able to bring her to the Lord. And to this day, she's there at Hegwish Baptist Church. And I just give God all the praise, the glory, and the honor.